You ever have one of those weeks where you realize the universe has decided you're its favorite chew toy? Yeah, that was me. Name's Hank Jordan, and I farm dirt for a living. Good dirt, blackened. Rich, the kind that'll grow corn so sweet you'd eat it straight off the stalk. For years, life ran pretty smooth. Just me, my wife Pam, and the seasons rolling by. But then Whispering Pines, this fancy HOA neighborhood, cropped up next door, and my whole world went sideways. It all started with a pink Range Rover, I swear on my tractor. Not just any car. This was the kind of vehicle that makes you think somebody's got too much money and not enough common sense. Karen Tillman, their HOA president, decided my cornfield made a better shortcut than an actual road. First time, I thought maybe she was lost, maybe she'd had a bad day and just needed to feel in control. So I let it slide. 30 seconds saved for her, $100 of seed gone for me. It stung, but, neighborly grace. Except it wasn't a one-time thing. Tuesdays and Thursdays, like clockwork, that bubblegum pink SUV cut through my field, crunching rows, raising dust. Pam, my wife, would stand at the kitchen window, coffee in hand, and shake her head. She thinks the world's her doormat. She wasn't wrong. After the third time, I decided to speak her language. Big, red. No trespassing signs on every corner of the field, all neat, polite, and legally binding. Even wrote please on them because, well, my mama raised me right. Let me back up a sec. If you think signs matter to people like Karen, think again. She rolled down her window, laughed, loud, sharp, carried clean across the field, and then just drove around the sign, crushing twice as many rows for good measure. It was deliberate. It was a message. My rules didn't count. My field was just her shortcut. Pam, she's the brains of this outfit, started pulling up property maps on her laptop. She's breaking the law? Hank, she said, pointing at the line. The signs just prove she knows it. She's right. But what do you do when being reasonable gets you nowhere? You escalate, politely. At first. So I bought 10 tons of rough gravel, used the tractor to lay out a lane right on our property line, 8 feet wide, legal, obvious. Even added a friendly sign, farm vehicle crossing. I left her an out. If she wanted to pretend that was always the way, I'd let her save face. Hell, I would have let the whole thing go if she'd just used it. But Karen, she doubled down. Next rainstorm. She veered off the gravel lane before it even started, carved a muddy scar straight through the middle of my field. It was personal now. You ever watch someone look you dead in the eye and dare you to stop them? That's what this was. I started thinking, maybe it's time for a gate. Big, heavy, with a chain. But Pam called the county first. Turns out, there's an old agricultural easement across that strip. No locked gates, not for emergencies, not ever. Karen must have known. Presidents see every plat map. She was exploiting a rule meant for emergencies, not shortcuts. At this point, the whole thing started feeling like a bad joke. The law wouldn't let me build a wall, but I wasn't about to let her win. Pam, calm as ever, said, we can't block it, but we can maintain it. Drainage, irrigation, whatever. Doesn't have to be pleasant. And that's when the storm hit. 3 inches of rain, wind howling. Perfect. That night, I was out there in the rain, sculpting the field with my tractor. Nothing illegal, just channeling water, making a shallow swale right along her path. By morning, that shortcut was a swamp. Deep, sticky mud that'd swallow a four-wheeler whole. I even set up a trail camera, aimed right at the entrance, so we'd have proof. You know what happened next? 4 o'clock sharp. Here comes the pink Range Rover, window down, sunglasses on. She looked at the slightly narrowed gravel entrance, shrugged, and gunned it straight into the mud. For 10 glorious feet, she floated. Then the tires spun, spit black mud sky high, and she sank. Up to the axles. She got out, lost a shoe, screamed for a tow truck. I watched it all from the porch with Pam, coffee in hand. It was better than TV. But life loves a twist, right? The tow truck, Bubba's 24-hour recovery, no less, shows up. Guy's huge, beard down to his belly, attitude to match. I offered a solid gravel lane for the rescue. Told him not to wreck my field anymore than it already was. Bubba just grunted, ignored me, and drove right into the swamp. Big mistake. His truck immediately dug trenches, ripped up the corn, and, just my luck, snapped an irrigation pipe. Clean in two. Water gushed everywhere, turning the mud pit into a small lake. Now, here's where things went full Jerry Springer. I ran up, told Bubba to stop. He shoved me. On my own land, no less. I went down hard in the mud. Something inside me just broke. 40 years of working land gives you certain muscles. He wasn't ready for that. We wrestled, slipping, sliding, swinging fists and wrenches in the rain, both of us looking like monsters out of a swamp movie. Pam, sharp as always, was on the phone with the sheriff. Next thing you know, the blue lights flash. Deputy Miller steps out, sighs like a man who's seen it all. Miller listened, took one look at the field, the destroyed crops, the pristine gravel lane, the video footage Pam handed him on her tablet, and started making calls. Bubba ended up cuffed for assault and criminal mischief. Karen got a trespass citation, and the story wasn't over yet. But here's where the story really flipped. The twist. Nobody saw coming. Karen tried to paint herself the victim at the HOA meeting, crocodile tears and all. Pam fired up the projector, showed video after video. Karen laughing at the signs. Karen ignoring the lane, Bubba destroying the field. Neighbors started chiming in, one after another, about every little rule Karen had used against them. Garden gnomes, barking dogs, you name it. The room turned. She lost her power right there in front of everyone. Insurance denied her claim. Her own company called it intentional off-road trespass. We took her to court with a binder thicker. Then a Bible, photos, receipts, soil tests, everything. The judge sided with us, awarded the full amount. That check paid for a proper gate, swinging steel, a cattle guard, the works. Whispering Pines voted Karen out. For sale sign went up in her yard. Pink Range Rover vanished, and peace returned to the land. One Saturday, Pam and I replanted the torn-up patch ourselves. Quiet. Slow work, but healing. We'd been tested, pushed, and we'd answered with order, not anger. There's something about building a good fence, setting a boundary that says, this is where it stops. And I'll tell you, sometimes the last word doesn't belong to the loudest voice or the fanciest car. Sometimes it's just the gate that finally closes and the quiet that settles in after. But you know what? That's just my side. You can call it justice or call it overkill. Some say I should have let it go. Others say I didn't go far enough. So, tell me, was I right, was she? Where's the line between standing your ground and going too far? Comment below, share your thoughts. Because in a world full of Karens, sometimes you just gotta draw yours with steel. After all that, the courtroom win, the check that finally hit my mailbox, the way Karen just disappeared. Life settled, but it never really went back to before. It's funny, isn't it? You stand your ground so hard you dig a new line in the earth, but some lines never quite fade. I spent the first few days after the verdict moving through my own place like I was seeing it for the first time. The cornfield, scarred but recovering. The new steel gate swinging perfectly across the lane. Cattle guard set solid in the dirt like it had always belonged there. And the neighbors? Well, they started looking at me a little different, like maybe I'd done something most folks only dream about. I'm not saying it was all parades and pies on the porch. My field was a mess, deep. Ruts, ruined crop rows, the kind of damage that makes your stomach turn every time you look at it. Pam and I, we spent a whole weekend out there with shovels and seed, her on her knees, pushing kernels into the black earth, me hauling soil, packing down the soft spots. It felt less like farming, more like mending a broken bone. But every little win felt huge. The day the new irrigation pipe went in and I saw water running where it was supposed to, that felt like turning a page. The day we finished tilling out the last of Bubba's tire tracks and raked new furrows over them, I almost cheered out loud. It wasn't perfect, but it was proof you can take back ground, even after someone's tried to steal it out from under you. You know what changed the most, though? It wasn't just the field. It was the neighborhood. Whispering Pines, which had always felt like a little walled-off country club, got a whole lot quieter. Karen's for sale sign went up before the ink was even dry on that judgment. By the end of the month, her house was empty, Range Rover replaced by a nondescript gray sedan, like the place exhaled and let all the tension out at once. Neighbors who'd never waved before started dropping by, asking about drainage or how to keep deer out of their tomatoes. One old guy, Ed, the one who'd spoken up at the HOA meeting, actually brought over a six-pack and a pie. Said he hadn't had a good night's sleep since Karen started her reign of terror. Sometimes Pam would catch me standing at the new gate, just watching the sun set over that healed-up patch of corn. She'd sidle up next to me, arms folded, and say, "Worth it." And I'd tell her, every time, absolutely. Because it wasn't just about the mud or the ruts or even the lost money. It was about drawing a line and making it stick, reminding myself and everybody else that boundaries matter, that decency matters. Funny thing is, word travels fast in places. Like this. I heard stories. Karen tried the same tricks in her next HOA, but nobody had the patience for it. She moved again, and last I heard, she was renting somewhere in the city, 1,000 miles from the nearest cornfield or cattle guard. I'd be lying if I said I felt bad for her. Actions, consequences, you know? But if you're thinking it's all happy endings, ribbons tied neat, let me tell you, life isn't a movie. The next season brought drought, then rain, then prices dipped, then rose. Farming's never simple. There were days when I wondered if it was all worth it, when the repairs felt endless, when I'd see that scar in the field and think about every dollar, every hour spent fighting just to stand still. But then spring came, and the new corn broke through, green and bright, and stubborn as ever. Pam and I took our usual walk along the property line, her with her mug of tea, me just listening to the breeze. And I realized that sometimes the battles you fight aren't just for yourself. They're for the folks who come after, the next neighbor, the next farmer, maybe even the next version of yourself that needs a reminder that you can't let the world just roll over you. One night, we sat on the porch, quiet except for the crickets and the hum of the distant highway. Pam said, "Do you ever regret it? Not letting it go?" I looked at her. At the field, at that shining new gate catching the last orange light. "Not a bit," I said, and I meant it. Because every boundary you hold, every time you make the hard choice to stand up, to fight back, to fix what someone else tried to break, you're not just defending dirt. You're defending the right to draw a line and have it respected. And that's worth more than any crop. So here's my advice, for what it's worth. If someone laughs at your boundaries, if they cut corners through your life, don't let them set the rules. Find your own way to hold the line. It might get messy. It might get muddy. But sometimes, the mud's exactly what you need to keep the story honest. And if you're still listening, tell me, what would you have done? Where do you draw your line? Is there ever a time when enough is enough? Or do you just let it go for the sake of peace? I've made my choice, for better or worse. Now it's your turn. Drop your story. Your take. Let's see where the line is for you. Because in the end, it's not about the loudest voice or the flashiest car. It's about the fence that stands and the peace you earn on the inside.